All right, guys, thank you for that one. Speaking of cold, it's time to bring in Mary O'Connell for today's Running on Ice community segment. And Mary, it's been chilly across the Southeast. We know that, as Thomas mentioned, under I-40 and under 20,000 pounds. But when it comes to hauling cold chain freight, we're talking about the importance of routing systems today, right? What's the importance of that specifically when it comes to cold chain?
Well, it also has been cold in parts of the Midwest as well. So we can't forget about parts of that, as it was 25 degrees for our trick-or-treaters earlier this year. Or not earlier this year, earlier this week. But aside from that, so this week on Running on Ice, we really kind of touch on some of the more behind the scenes activities, because I know that, most people probably don't think of a vehicle routing program or something like that when it comes to their cold chain, but it's actually one of the more important parts because it keeps those vehicles running. It keeps routes optimized, and it makes it so, because, most of the time, with frozen or cold things or temperature controlled things, there's a little bit of urgency to them. They need to be there by a certain time, and so sometimes you have to deal with what you have and make the best of a situation and get kind of creative with some solutions. So kind of having a routing system in place really kind of takes a lot of that guesswork and puts a lot more hands kind of back, returns a lot of that quality control to the shipper to make sure that their products are getting where they need to be on time, as well as, in the condition that they need to be in.
And Mary, when I'm hearing about this, I can only think about efficiency and really being able to optimize. Can you talk to some of the aspects around saving money and really avoiding any kind of waste when it comes to route optimization?
Absolutely. So one of the things that you can do with your route optimization is not only, make it so that way you're not going over here, then back over here and every which way. You can also more or less optimize how the truck is loaded. So for example, if you know that you have 4 drops and you show up to the first one bright and early, and maybe it's at a grocery store and the manager forgot his keys, or, for some reason you cannot make that delivery through no fault of your own to that first location. Well, typically what would happen is then you would go back to the warehouse, have to offload that first load because it takes up the entire back of the truck. And then you have to, then you go back out to your second or third stop, which could be 100 miles back the other way, which then, obviously sets off your on time percentage for the rest of the day. And then also on top of that, you have to send out another truck later in the day with the load that couldn't be delivered in the morning. But a lot of times you can optimize how the truck is loaded, so that way all you have to do is offload a couple pallets and just kind of rearrange a couple pallets, and you can still make that second delivery and that third delivery and that fourth delivery without having to go back to the warehouse to drop off that first delivery. And maybe, who knows, by the end of the day you might be able to unload that first delivery. So it really cuts down on wasted miles and wasted driving time. And then also, you're not making a driver drive all over the place with empty miles just because, the stops weren't in the right order.
Mary, of course, all of this sounds like it's the perfect opportunity to get some technology in and maybe even some artificial intelligence to help you with your routing optimization. Is that something that we're seeing being employed more and more in the cold chain space? And specifically when it comes to those situations, like you mentioned, maybe you can't make the first delivery, so you want to make sure your trailer's in the right configuration, as well as your route is in the right order.
Absolutely. So something to think about is, you have there's a finite number of resources for drivers, and if you're a shipper, you're looking to maintain your transportation costs. So you don't want to necessarily pay a driver to go all over the place, and maybe there's a rate per mile, and suddenly they've racked up 600 miles, which usually it could have only been 300. So kind of implementing AI and other machine learning tools makes it so much easier to really just churn through all that data and make those the best routes possible. Because otherwise, without it, you probably have, John sitting at a computer with a Google Maps and trying to figure out where the best locations for everything are. So really, it's it's like a big puzzle, and AI and machine learning can crank through it so much faster than someone sitting there inputting destinations and looking at a map and building it that way. Because that's going to take, they're going to be able, they can only get through a certain amount of loads per day, whereas AI and machine learning, it can bust through like a week's worth of loads in an hour.
And Mary, can you talk to the overlap between any types of regulations within the industry and then the assistance of a route optimization, really how that can help you be more compliant?
So one of the things that's really helpful is especially, so when you're building a load as a human, you have to think of, okay, well, how many miles can this driver drive in a day? And then where does that leave them? Like, where does that make them end? And that's something that can be tricky, especially if, you're trying to maximize the amount of stuff you can put on a truck. But with AI, you can set, in machine learning, and all these other technology solutions out there, you can set parameters. And these parameters can be anything from on-time performance to pickup performance to hours of service for a driver to make sure that they're not violating any of those. There's so many different parameters you can set that as soon as something starts falling outside of it, you'll automatically be alerted versus just hoping someone runs a report that day and notices a change and notices the proper deviation from what is the norm. So it's really important for not only that, but running the business and making sure that all of your freight's getting where it needs to be on time and in the right condition. So it can do a lot more than just make a really pretty route.
So Mary, you guys are breaking this down in full detail on your episode of Running on Ice this afternoon. Who's your guest and where can folks catch it?
So we have Pratik Jagad from New Viz. We've had some New Viz guys on in the past. We're switching it up this time. Just keep watching FreightWaves right here, and it'll come on about 2:00. Just in time for that early Friday afternoon lull that seems to always fall.
And Mary, for those that are going to be making their way to Chattanooga for F3, will you be around?
I will be around. I will be at registration, so you'll more than likely get your name badge from me. And then you can also catch me on the FreightWaves TV stage and at all the other amazing events that we have planned at F3. If you have not decided to go yet, well, make that decision. I'm making that decision for you. You're going, buy your ticket, buy your plane ticket, come hang out with us.
There you go. All right, Mary. Well, we're excited to have you guys here in Chattanooga with us here in just a few days. Can't wait to see you then. Right now, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more FreightWaves Now right after this.